What are directors looking for?
You mean besides a pulse?
I have a shadow on my shoulder.
And I have never been arrested for grand larceny. And this is Theater Babble. Like, that implies that you've
been arrested.
All right. It also implies that you have been arrested for crap.
So today we're talking about what directors are looking for when they cast a show, which is a really interesting question. Actors ask me this all the time, like, what should I do? What should I prepare? What do you want to see? Things like that. And I think that the thing that's important for actors to realize is that we don't necessarily know what we want. So we're casting a show, right? So you and I are both holding auditions for our own shows, and we've read the play, we've done our research, we've got our character descriptions and all that sort of stuff. What are we looking for the actors to bring? What do we want to see up on stage?
It's different for every show and for every character. Every director kind of has an idea for what they want for the character, and you're there to kind of see what your options are. Obviously, that's the casting process, right? That's what the audition process is, as simple as, right? Is I'm here to see what my options for this character are. And you have a sense in your head, but also the actors have a sense, and you kind of are there to see, like, it's, let me pick to try and create the best show. Because at the end of the day, that's the director's goal, is to figure out the best cast to create the best version of the show that he can put on. And it also could be like, do they have a chemistry with the stage, right? Like, what's their gravitas like, you know? Like, and therefore, the answer is not technical prowess, or the answer is not to be very loud in your audition, right? There's not one answer to the how do I get cast for a role.
It's not only the technical prowess or whatever. There's all of these different components.
Yeah, it's not, there's never one thing that is going to get you the role, right? Each of those individual skills gets you points. You know, I talk a lot about value. It's like, so an actor has value to your play, and the different skills that an actor brings provides, essentially adds to their total value as an actor for the specific play, not as a person, as an actor for the play.
Because they have no value as a person.
Yeah, nobody has any value as a person to me, right? We're all just atoms spinning around on a ball of dirt. So that's going to take away from the play, even if you are the world's best actor, right? Who's the world's best actor? Is it still Tom Cruise? Was it ever Tom Cruise?
If you ask Tom Cruise.
If you ask Tom Cruise, right? The worst part about being Tom Cruise is you don't get to experience living in a world with Tom Cruise. So I pity Tom Cruise.
So talking about like a score. So here's the, to kind of back it up.
Yeah.
I think, okay, so I'm an actor, you're the director, right? And I'm trying to prep for my audition, and I'm working on my monologue, and I'm picking out my audition outfit and editing my resume, doing all of those sorts of things, and I'm
combing your hair.
Right, combing all of my hair. And then my work is, traditionally, as an actor, we're kind of like, we're focusing in, right? We're honing in on the character or characters that we think we might potentially be cast. So already at that point, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, what does the director think? Right? Because we're trying to choose which roles, okay, if I want to get cast, I should hedge my bets for the characters that I'm right for, right? But you're automatically then, you're cutting out, you're devaluing what you bring to the audition process, or what you bring to the stage, by immediately trying to figure out what the director wants. And as directors, we go into an audition, we have preconceived notions. I don't know about you, but a lot of times, like when I'm reading a script, especially for the first time, I kind of mentally insert friends who are actors into different roles. It helps me keep track of who's who and stuff like that. So then when I go into an audition, I'm already thinking, oh, well, Joe Bob is, he's perfect for this. And I see he's coming to audition, so great.
Boom.
Right? That's done.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that's what we want.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, almost all of my best casting choices have been not my first choice when I originally went to go cast the play, because somebody else showed up and they presented a opportunity that I hadn't yet beheld in my mind. Like, so somebody took they're like, oh, I'm auditioning for the role of X, Y, or Z, and that I was like, okay, well, I'm imagining that role is X. You know, I'm not going to use too many variables. Too much algebra for too much algebra for the theater crowd.
Right.
Right. So they're auditioning for some role, and I imagine that role, let's say, as aggressive and charismatic, and they take it, and it's a very somber performance, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have a new understanding of the potential of that character, and it allows me to kind of imagine what the show would be like with this version of that character. And sometimes it essentially expands my understanding as a director, right? And there's a conversation that happens between the actor and the director that causes a growth of the production as a whole, right? Especially if you have a really competent, good director who is able to kind of read into that conversation. That's as an actor, you're not really trying to fit the description of the role, because that's just what they've already brought. They've already had someone in mind for that, and you have to be the best at that exact fit of the role. That's part of the problem.
Right. So it's kind of like if you go to a buffet, right? You go to an old person buffet, and if you go up to the buffet and all of your protein choices are roast beef.
Yeah.
You just have, here's roast beef, or there's roast beef, or you can also have roast beef. Then you're there and you're like, well, they're all the same.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me which one I take.
Yeah.
Because they're all the same. But if you've got all of these roast beefs and then all of a sudden you come up to grilled salmon or something that you weren't expecting, then you're, well, I'll take that because it's new.
Yeah.
It's and now I'm going to change the sides that I chose because I'm having grilled salmon, and it really does. I mean, that's kind of getting ridiculous for an analogy, but that really is what happens when we cast. Somebody in the casting process almost always like lights a spark for me. And then I end up casting the rest of the show because of that spark. Believe it or not, you guys, directors, we dread having to say no.
Yeah.
That's like the hardest part of our job, is when we have to tell the people that we didn't cast them. So I'm already thinking about this from this friend. He comes in and he nails the audition. He nailed the audition. And so because of that, I rethought I think there was 8 other characters. I rethought all of my other 8 characters. Because I knew at that moment, I have to have him in this show.
Exactly.
But I didn't know that going in. He showed me through his audition by bringing the best version of himself to that audition process.
Yeah.
So when you're going in, try to think about, I mean, that's the focus for you as actors, is not what is the director looking for. Walk in and show us that you're what we're looking for. I think that it's kind of like a summary statement. Everything else we say, I think, kind of goes into that.
Right. You can stop watching now.
I have this skill set, or I have this look, or I have this ability. How can I lend that to every play that I go out for so that the show becomes better because of my participation? And approach all of your auditions that way, rather than trying to worry about what we're looking for. But there are some things that we are looking for. I mean, we do look at, like, if you're supposed to bring a memorized monologue and you're not memorized, we do see those things, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be cast, but we see those things.
Yeah.
So it's important that when you're working on the best version of yourself, that you do kind of keep in mind these sort of skills or traits or other things that directors do kind of look at. We do have a scorecard that we run, whether it's an actual scorecard on the page.
Yeah, I have a literal scorecard.
I work a lot of times when I work with music directors and choreographers, they have a literal scorecard that they're rating people as they go through.
Yeah.
That's another thing to keep in mind with this video. Every director is different.
Yeah.
And every director is going to have different priorities, different things they're looking for. For me personally, when we're talking about preparedness, you having your monologue memorized is going to be like 4th or 5th on the list of preparedness for me. If you have to pull your monologue out and you read it and you still do a great performance even though you're reading it,
Yeah.
or you skip a chunk, I am going to be a lot more forgiving on that than if you run in late and you don't have time to fill out your paperwork.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have poor time management skills. Or you say, oh, I didn't know we were supposed to have a monologue. I've had that happen
Yeah.
before. So, so there's different things that go into preparedness.
Yeah. I've worked on plays where somebody has come in unprepared and it's like, you don't even get to do your audition. The director says, you know what, I'm not going to work with you, right? They don't even want to see how good you are because it's that much of a detriment. And for me, I'm not like that, right? But preparedness is one of the ones that it's like, that's one that you can there are very specific rules. Show up on time, know the directions that you're supposed to, the instructions for what you're supposed to bring. That's an easy one to get right because those are often written out beforehand.
Yeah. Check the audition announcement.
Exactly. Check the audition announcement.
But to get back to the question, for me, the most important thing that I look for when an actor comes in is their desire to be there, their passion.
Yeah.
Everything, for me, everything is secondary to your desire to be there. And I have seen actors who come in and audition and it's almost like their parole officer made them come or something. And you feel like they don't want to be there. And it could be because they've had a rotten day or
nervous.
Right. Or maybe they just found out that day that they got cast for something else and they know they're not going to accept something, but they wanted to go through with the audition for whatever reason. But show up and want to be there and want to be in that show. So don't come in and say, with an attitude that I just want to get cast, I just want to work. You want to come in with the attitude that I really want to be in this particular show because I love this show, or the director is somebody I've worked with before and I really enjoy it, or the company is a company that I love working for. But come in because you want to be a part of that production specifically and show that geeky passion.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, you're let it come out. Let the exuberance come out of being able to do the work. Finish out the top 3, right?
Yeah.
This is the hat trick of skills, is how an actor processes direction.
Oh, yes.
And communication skills, which is about what you bring to the table, because if you do your audition, right, and it's a killer audition, you do a great job with it, and I say, could you do it again, but this time do this thing? That's about what you're, open. Yeah, that's what you're bringing also, is you're bringing your willingness to explore. You're bringing your willingness. A lot of times, whether it's conscious or not, I think when an actor struggles with processing direction, it's because they don't buy into it. They don't believe in the direction. And so because I know I've done it before, we push back against that direction.
Yeah.
Rather than just taking it in and saying, okay, when I give you that direction, when I ask you to do it again, but do this other thing to it, I'm not looking for you to nail that new thing. I'm looking for you to hear what I said and then try something that puts it into action.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not about getting it right. So again, it's about your skill. It's then your interpretation of what I just said.
Yeah.
You process it, you put it through your filters, your skill sets, whatever it is, and you bring me something new. So how you take direction. And I think that's why a lot of times directors, it's a perception of directors, but there's also a lot of truth where we have actors that we like to work with.
Yeah.
And we'll recast. I've got a few actors that I have to make a conscious effort not to cast, because in my opinion, I could put them somewhere in every single play I do.
Yeah.
There's a role for them somewhere, and I love working with them. Partially because of that, we've developed like a vocabulary.
Yeah.
We have a communication where
speak your language.
Yeah, we can speak in footnotes almost.
Yeah.
And they know exactly what I'm trying to communicate.
Hey, can you try it in like you know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, no, I'll try it that way. And like nobody said anything, and you've perfectly communicated you want to have them do it in a different way. Like, I totally get that. There's that language develops. If you're an actor and you want to improve your directability, right? What do you do? Is there a skill to practice, or is it just a mindfulness thing? What's the key to improving your directability?
One of the things...
Is directability a word? I don't think it's a word.
It's a word now. Directability. It's a new...
Directability.
Right here. Directability. We'll put it up on the screen.
Somewhere here.
Copyright.
The description right there.
So directability, yes, because I think that in order to be directed efficiently, it does come down to the actor having confidence in their ability. So that if I say, can you do the scene again, but do it in a French accent, you have to have faith that you can either do a really good French accent or you can do a really terrible French accent that's going to be equally entertaining, right? So it comes down to your confidence, and the way that you build the confidence is by practicing. So when you're practicing, let's say for the audition, because that's kind of what we started talking about, was what to bring to the audition. Practice your audition monologue 1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
And if you get stuck on what's another way to do this, go to ridiculous. Play the role as a frog.
Yeah.
Play the role as a Frenchman. Play the role as a spoon, right? But just go into ridiculousness, because what that does is it frees up your brain.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a brainstorming session for your acting. Okay, so now I want to talk about something in the casting process that's a little tricky, but it's still about what the actor brings to the process. Okay, so a little bit of content warning on this section, because it's talking about appearance. And as much as, well, when we're talking about appearance, there's an actor's expectation of how appearance fits into casting, and then there's the reality of how appearance fits into it. And they're similar, but they're also extremely different at the same time.
Yeah.
So when we're going into the casting of a show, we've talked about directors having preconceived notions. And part of that preconceived notion is about the look of the characters, what we think these characters look like.
Yeah.
So we have this idea. That doesn't mean that we're only going to cast actors that fit that look. It means that we have that as a preconceived sort of idea. Your look, you have a little bit of control over in how you present yourself, how you're dressed, is your hair out of your eyes, things like that, so we can see what you're doing. But you also don't have control over certain things. And some things that can make for really unhealthy behaviors in actors, like unhealthy weight control or dieting, exercising, things like that. Dyeing your hair too often where your hair's fried, and then you look like me for the rest of your life. Things like that. No. But appearance is important. So I cast a show recently where it was a family unit, and I had a kid audition who was Indian, South Asian, killed it. And I knew that I wanted to cast that person. So for the rest of the family unit, I was looking for people that fit that ethnicity, that would work together. So I couldn't have blonde-haired, blue-eyed parents for this kid. I mean, I could, but then it tells a different story than the story I wanted to be telling with the show. So appearance comes into play that way. There might be, any number of things that happen in a show. If your character is supposed to walk on stilts, or do some other sort of acrobatic thing, then the director might have a preconceived notion that they have to be an athletic actor. And so your weight might then come into play in that. There might be a gag during the show where something specific has to happen so that it needs a certain kind of body type. Now, that doesn't mean that all actors have to be skinny and blonde hair and blue eyes, because all of these roles, I am definitely not skinny and blonde hair. There was a time when I had blonde hair, but that was a long time ago. Key is being who you are, bringing your uniqueness to the roles, so that if you're built like me, if you're a big old guy, then you bring that to your audition in such a way that it's a benefit to your performance rather than a hindrance. You show those things off, right? You revel in what makes you uniquely you.
There's a lot of visual medium to the director's That's maybe not the right words.
The visual storytelling.
Visual storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like you, as a director, you're painting in your head what it looks like, right? You have an idea for the cast, for the structure, for the props, for everything has a visual story in your head, and so you are going to try and find the people that match that story, right?
They can tell that story, yeah.
Yeah, exactly like Scott says. Like if you can take what you look like and understand it and kind of now present it as an asset.
So I think that that's key. And when we're talking about appearance, it's, like I said, this is a really touchy subject to talk about in casting. But the reality is that it's part of the casting process. And it's important for actors to recognize that, but to try and recognize it and embrace it in a way that empowers you as an actor rather than feeling like a detriment. But again, use that, bring that to your performance. So me being a big guy, an older guy, if I want to play Peter Pan, then when I go to my audition, I'm going to nail my Peter Pan audition and let the director figure out how they're going to get me up in the air, right? That's their problem. That's my problem. My job is to be the best actor for the role.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So still commit yourself, even if you think that you're not the right body type or the right height or your hair's the wrong color or whatever it is, you can still be the best person for that role because of what you bring to your audition. And I think there's one other thing that I'd like to talk about when it comes to, right.
I can see you have special skills highlighted.
Yeah, special skills. So I would venture to say every one of us has special skills. You may not think that your special skill is a special skill, but if you can play piano, if you can juggle, if you can do acrobatics, if you can tell a great knock-knock joke, if you can cry on command, you know what, whatever special skills you have, whatever uniqueness, again, this is about the best version of you. I'm not saying juggle for the first time at your audition.
Definitely not.
If you have this as a skill that you know you can nail, try to find a way that you can incorporate that into your auditions because it, again, ups your value. It increases your value. And it may not be something that gets used in that show, but it's something that then the director has in the back of their mind. This person has this set of skills, these abilities. And sometimes directors will change what's going on in the show because of that, because they want to incorporate, well, you're a fire breather and it was awesome, so I want you to do fire breathing in every performance.
Exactly.
Right? So don't underestimate what you can bring to the table aside from your acting ability and aside from a great personality and your passion. What else do you have that you can put into that? Explore your special skills. One of the best auditions I've ever watched when I was directing a show, a guy did a monologue from Children of a Lesser God, which is a play about a deaf woman, essentially, and a love story. And he is a sign interpreter. And so as he was performing the monologue, performing the words, he was also signing along with it. And I cast him because it was his special skill that he's phenomenal at. He does it professionally, the sign interpreting, but it also fit the character and it fit the part so well. And I absolutely wasn't expecting to see anything like that in the auditions.
Yeah.
I was completely enthralled by his intelligence to assess himself and then to find a way to incorporate that into the audition without it feeling gimmicky.
Yeah.
It was still honest.
Yeah, the gimmicky part is an important point. Like, I've had auditions where it's like, why did you do that? Like I'm trying to understand what the choice
I'm pulled out of the audition now.
Yeah, it's like, it wasn't wrong, it was just weird. And then because of that, like, it's like, that pulls me out. You've lost value, not because you really did anything detrimental, but because it was just distracting, right? You've distracted from the other value. And so because of that, I've lost it, right? Because obviously, if I don't see your value, you don't have it to the director, right? Like, doesn't matter if you're fantastic if I can't tell, right? Yeah. And So
So use your special skills, but use them intelligently. Use them in a way that adds value
yeah.
to your audition. You know, as actors, work on, I know this is kind of counterintuitive, but work on your confidence so that when you can walk into the room, you can walk into the audition confident that you are bringing the best version of yourself to the process. Every day when you show up for rehearsal, same thing. Figure out what it is that makes you unique and capitalize on that rather than thinking about this is a shortcoming that I have, right? And with some shortcomings, maybe you can get training out of it or something like that. But regardless, focus on what are your pluses. How do you raise your score in the scorecard?
Yeah.
And have confidence in that. Don't be afraid to show us that our preconceived notion of this character is wrong.
Yeah.
Or is only one of 100 ways that this character can
Or
be played.
incomplete.
Yeah. So think about that next time you're preparing for an audition, y'all. Focus on yourself. Focus on the best version of yourself. That's my TED Talk.
Yeah, thanks for coming to our TED Talk. This whole thing should just be, it's theater TED Talks.
Right, theater TED Talks. I think the name might be taken already.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
Who's this TED guy? Why is he always talking?
So thanks for tuning in. Of
course.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And all of that nonsense. And we'll have another new video coming out shortly.
As soon as we can.
Bye. Toodles.